There was one franchise you picked out where I thought you were crazy. There was another one where I was like, I thought that was going to be it. And then there was the franchise I took and I ended up investing in that was kind of like in the middle. I was like, I probably won't do it, but I could see where that comes from. So, I mean, I came in with this with a very open mind, and I think that's what people need to do.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the latest edition of FranCoach's Franchising 101 podcast. I am Tim Parmeter, founder and CEO of FranCoach and your podcast host. Today is another episode of, as I always say, my favorite segment in this series called In Their Words. In this segment, we are going to hear directly from FranCoach clients who have become franchise owners. This one is a podcast listener, then client, then franchise owner. So the old full circle thing. We're going to talk all about her background, what led them to consider franchise ownership, how they navigated this process, what franchise they chose, and how this has gone so far. Today's guest was an absolute pleasure getting to know and getting to work with. Had really a couple different things towards the end of this process that would have derailed most people, and actually kept him actually moving forward, more determined to do that. So really excited to kind of share his story. Before we do that, we have to tell you this. And again, quickly reminder of who we are. FranCoach, we are the premier franchise consulting firm. Our number one goal is not to sell you a franchise. We don't sell anything. Our number one goal is to properly educate you on franchise ownership to determine if you should own a franchise. If so, then we're going to help you find your absolute best fit. Not my best fit, not anybody else's, but yours. This is the most individualized and personalized process, focused on, guess what? You. It's the best thing, right? That's what we're going to do. That's how this all works. Now let's talk to somebody who has gone through all of this and see how it went. All right. And we are back here on the Franchising 101 podcast, and joining us today, excited to chat with this guest, Mr. Trevor Schermer. Trevor, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Tim. Super excited to be here. I'm fulfilling a lifelong dream, which is great.
There are many people that their dream in life is to be on the Franchising 101 podcast. So congratulations.
I can knock it off the list.
Yeah, all you had to do was spend several months dealing with me and then invest in a franchise. It's just that easy, boys and girls. So cool. No, looking forward to, and this was such a fun journey that we went through, and I look forward to you being able to kind of share all of this, and certainly we'll dive into a whole bunch of things that went on along the way. But give us a scoop. Who the heck is Trevor, man? What's a little you had life before franchising. Do you remember that? What was that like?
Well, it all started late August, 1991. I'll take you all the way back. No, I'm just kidding. Trevor Schermer. I'm a consultant right now, and anytime I introduce myself to new clients, I'm always like, Trevor Schermer, CPA, MBA. I get that out of the way to kind of get my stats up. So used to saying that, Trevor Schermer, CPA, MBA. I have been, I've worked before franchising. Right now, I'm currently a consultant in ERP systems. So if anyone out there knows NetSuite, Sage Intacct, I implement those systems for a partner of those systems. I also have been a controller, a CFO in a past life, and actually out of college worked for an oil company for about 4 years as an accountant. So moved all across the U.S. In those times, got to experience different things and really see the country, which has been great. So more of an accounting background, but I've gotten to see different areas like ops and manufacturing and things like that.
Over the months, and get a chance to get to know you and talking to you for your financial accounting background, you actually speak human, which is kind of also crazy because that's not always a skill. So you learned human and all of the invaluable things from a financial standpoint. So and had a ton of success. And though I almost just ended this podcast right off the bat because you're talking about 1991 and August 1991. I'm like, oh yeah, I was going into my last year of college. I'm like, oh God, that's depressing.
Sorry, Tim. I didn't mean to bring up good / bad memories.
No, I was an overachiever. I was actually 7. So
okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I was going to say 3, but either one. Yeah.
When I started, right? So yeah, I moved through. I was 4 years. I was pretty much done with my doctorate, doctorate, of course.
Of course.
So cool. So you got this great background, been super successful. But somewhere in there, there's the itch, the curiosity to look into maybe having a business, something for yourself. What kind of drove that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it kind of goes to my childhood is like really where it starts. So I've had 4 parents. I've been blessed to, actually like really young, my parents divorced, and I've actually been blessed with 4 different role models. And I've seen my parents open up their own businesses. My stepdad was a carpenter, sole proprietor. My dad and stepmom opened up a company and in the aviation industry. And I've been able to see the benefits of entrepreneurship. And so that's had a big effect in me in terms of really what I want to do and my goals. And so out of college, I went to the Ohio State University and got my accounting degree. I had to throw that in there. Sorry. Well, I'm not really that sorry, but I started working for an oil company.
Wait, hold on. Is there? How was their football team this past year?
It was pretty good. It was pretty good.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay,
still reigning national champs. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that plug. I during my time with the oil company, I'm trying to keep names out of it, but during my times with my oil company, the oil company I worked for, I loved the company. It was a great company, great benefits, all sorts of stuff, but there was something missing. There was always something where I was like, there has to be more than this. I don't want to be forgotten. I kind of want to leave a legacy. And so I decided to get my MBA. And I went to Indiana University, so I stayed within the Big Ten.
Go Hoosiers!
Yep, go Hoosiers! Absolutely. And so at the Indiana University, Kelly has a phenomenal entrepreneurship program. And so I majored or specialized in that, really thinking that was what I wanted to do. But I got used to a certain lifestyle that I wasn't going to be eating ramen, right? I didn't want to do that. And so I took a class called Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition during my MBA. And it was this gentleman who started basically his own private equity company, buying businesses, but he didn't sell them. So he kept them. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And even better, he was leaving this for his children. He was building a legacy and leaving this for his children. So that's then I graduated from IU end of 2019. And over the last 6 years, I've been looking at buying a business, off and on through while also having a stable job and all of that. And this time last year, I actually, about this time last year, I had a letter of intent to buy a business in Virginia. And that fell through, but it ended up being a franchise. And so at the time when I put in my NDA, I didn't know it was a franchise, but I got to more involved with franchises and got to learn about the model and things like that. And so, before I kind of had a negative impact, a negative thought on franchises of like, oh, it's a big company, all of that. And the more I looked into it, I was like, oh, this is a really cool model, right? I get to own my business, but I don't have to, very much like buying a business, right? Except they give you the playbook. So that fell through in December of 24, so about 6 months ago. And then I decided, well, maybe I start looking for a franchise myself. And so I literally was looking at car maintenance franchises. And I was on a walk with my dog one day and said, let me look if there's any podcasts with franchising. And yours was the first one. And started listening to those and reached out. And here we are now. The rest is history.
So good job bringing back me plugging Ohio State University. I'm sorry, the Ohio State University in football. Yeah. The podcast you were listening to, what was the name of it again? I forgot.
Franchising 101, I believe.
Oh, yes. Yep. That good-looking bald guy who graduated college when he was 7. So cool. So you had like a little experience with this, but you go back to something you said, because this is not uncommon franchising, right? Like and I had it before I got into this industry 11 years ago. It's, like to the point where I was afraid to say it. It was like, felt like it was a dirty word. What was kind of your experience or maybe your perception that led to like kind of feeling that way at the beginning? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think at first, before really diving in, it was like I want to support mom and pop places, and I think that I'm in a millennial generation. I feel like my generation is getting back into that of supporting mom and pop places. And so when you hear of a franchise and all these big companies, you think, oh, they're a big corporate. Why am I going to give more money to them, right? Rather than doing a mom and pop place. So looking into the model and really seeing the financials of that business that I was going to buy that turned out to be a franchise, and looking at that more, I realized that it's still locally owned. You do have some McDonald's out there and things like that are all owned by LLCs, and 100 of them and things like that. They're still providing jobs, which is great. But these franchises, a lot of them are owned by a family, right? And so that kind of shifted my perspective in terms of, well, it's a business that's proven successful, right? They're all over the US. They have a model. I didn't want to do the ramen thing. I was able to invest in one, right? And so I had someone that can help me with the areas I struggle, like marketing and sales, right? But I also am able to make it my own business in a certain way. And to be honest, I'm still an accounting background. I'd like to think I'm creative, but I'm not a creative guy like a marketing person, right? So having the branding, having those types of things in place where I can tweak it and use my financial background, it just started making more sense. Plus, it was cheaper than buying a business too. At the same time, it's a lot cheaper to do a franchise model if you find the right one than finding a business worth $600,000, $700,000, $800,000.
Yeah. It's the even in the franchising world, the resale it's almost always one extreme or the other, right? The business has done well, and then it is typically somewhere between overpriced and way overpriced, right? Or it's a little bit of a dumpster fire, right? And so some people like the dumpster fire and like the challenge of that, and other people can financially overpay for something. The rest of us are in that middle, and there's it's hard to kind of get those. Whereas the franchise is that in between where you've got all of the support, right? So, and you mentioned that local. I got literally like what you just said. I got to remember pull that clip out. Thanksgiving. What is it? The Saturday after Thanksgiving. There's Black Friday, and then the Saturday. I've heard like it's Small Business Saturday, right? Yep. And so I literally 7-8 years ago had like gotten this big old fight with a friend of mine because I was on Saturday and texting back and forth. Like, oh, I'm getting lunch, right? Like, where are you getting lunch? Well, it was a sandwich franchise, right? And they just got all cranky with me. Like, you're supposed to be supporting local business. I'm like, the owner's like I've met the owner. Like, it's Bob right back there. Right. Like he lives down the street, right? Like they really are. And so that's I'm glad you brought that up because it is sometimes a myth that it's like, because you see the brand, especially the bigger ones, you see it. So you think it's this big corporation, but it's owned by Trevor down the street. Right. And really there is that local connection, which is why they do it in the first place. So they're not hiring managers all over the place. They literally have that ownership component. Right. So,
yeah, I totally agree.
So very cool. So we get connected, we start looking at some franchises and you've got your background and then kind of what you had been looking at. And then we get into this and then it gets, usually once we get to the franchises, it's kind of off the rails pretty quickly. Right. So, and I think we looked at 3, maybe 4 to begin with. I was trying
3.
I think 3, right? So can you remember back to what that kind of thought, what was going in your mind at the time?
Yeah. There was one franchise you picked out where I thought you were crazy. There was another one where I was like, I thought that was going to be it. And then there was the franchise I took And I ended up investing in that was kind of like in the middle. I was like, I probably won't do it, but I could see where that comes from. So, I mean, I came in with this with a very open mind, and I think that's what people need to do. When I was looking in December, I was reaching out myself to other franchises in the car maintenance place, and you didn't even pick a car maintenance franchise for me, right? Based off of our conversation. So I was, part of me thought you were crazy and I was going to be stubborn and still go into that. But I was like, well, this guy does it for a living, right? So maybe I should trust him a little bit and be open-minded. And that's the key to this is staying open-minded with this whole process. And really, even though you don't think you're gonna, that one franchise that you picked that I kind of knew wasn't gonna, I still met with them. I was still going through the whole process. I knew pretty quickly that it still wasn't going to be my franchise, and I let them know, but I still wanted to give it a chance. So there was a lot of excitement, a little bit of trust that went into you to try to figure out and make sure that this was the correct franchise. And I think really it goes back to just trusting the process, right? And that's kind of what I did. This even on the first call, I was like, okay, we'll go in with an open mind, totally different than what you were expecting in terms of it. But I also learned new franchises, right? Things that I didn't even realize were like industrial hose franchises. I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. So, I remember a lot of trust being placed in you, a lot of excitement, a little bit of hesitation, but really not too much.
It's and it is the open mind is key, because even if the one that was the first one gone, there were a couple little background things where like it was either going to quickly jump to the top or is going to quickly be gone, and it either way it doesn't matter. But you're still learning new things, and even on that one, you get on there and you're like, I don't think this is it, but maybe, right? And it turns out not to be, but you learn things that then help drive us the other direction, right? And so, and then what does happen? It's usually either. This was kind of funny. It was usually either like the one that's at the bottom rises to the top. Every now and then, the one that's at the top stays right there, and you have this other one just kind of sitting in the middle, just like hovering. And as time went on, well, let's do this. Let's do the we'll do the brand reveal. We're going to talk about a gender reveal here in a second. But what is the franchise that you now own?
So Stand Strong Fencing.
Stand Strong Fencing. So I'm not really smart. What does Stand Strong Fencing do, Trevor? Do tell.
That's a good question, Tim. I don't know. I'm just kidding. I still have yet to start it, so I'm still learning. But obviously, I know the basis of it. So fence installation and repairs, right? So that's the broad business model.
Okay.
You know nothing about fencing.
I was just going to say, how many years of experience in fencing industry do you have? Zero. Okay. Yep. And when we were building all of this out, how many times did you say the word fence during this? Probably a big fat zero. And
I don't think, unless I was building fences between you and me, but I wouldn't have said that out loud. Yeah.
You were trying to fence some of the watches you stole or something down the street. So, tell what show I've been watching on Apple TV. So what is this? Friends and Neighbors, right? Anyway,
the new one. Yep.
With John Hamm, yeah. So you're welcome, Apple TV. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Shameless plug. Yeah.
Yes. So and if you'd like to have the Franchising 101 podcast on Apple TV, so what was it as we get going through here that for you kind of rose that one up a little bit?
Yeah, so multitude of different things. So are we allowed to talk about the other franchises, Tim, or is
we can, because we're friendly here, and
okay.
and plus industrial and hydraulic hoses limits that to like one. So,
Yeah. So PureTech was the other one I was strongly considering. And that was the one that I honestly thought was going to be the franchise I went with. I but I worked in an oil company at the refineries. I'm very familiar, work well with blue collar. I worked as a controller of a manufacturing floor. Vertec is more blue collar. I thought, like, given my background, oh yeah, this is going to be it, right? Like I was looking hard into that, doing everything for that, and Stand Strong was kind of on the wayside. So, and so I was still going through the process, and I was really, if you had a significant other, work with them on this, get their input, because that's what I was doing with my wife, working through this. And, it started to shift. I think it was early March. So about a month and 6 weeks into the process after the brand reveal, working with you, Tim, where I started to discover that Pertec was probably a little bit more of a full-time model. And there was a lot of things going on in my life that we can get to that I wanted the option to do as Horsepower Brands, the owner of Stand Strong says, do a semi-involved, or I wanted the option to do semi-involved or semi-absentee for use that don't know the Horsepower brand, for a franchise model. And I thought that Stand Strong started to, after reviewing that, there was a lot more potential to do that. So it was the ability to kind of keep my day job, which I liked, while getting my wife into the business, and she was more into the fencing side and being a project manager. That really shored up the decision, and it went from Pertec being top to then Stand Strong being like way ahead into the lead.
Yeah. And once again, your open-mindedness to this and having the conversations and really getting down to some of the things that are the biggest differentiators. It's rarely the things people think it's going to be about at the beginning, right? And so, and let's be honest, listen to the better half when in doubt, from this stuff. So, so we're kind of getting to the point where we're honing in here on Stand Strong, but we got some other things going on, right? So you're working, you guys are living in Nashville. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to stay there. You want to move. And as I recall, like, yeah, I wouldn't mind moving to any one of these 74 cities in the eastern half of the country.
25 states. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Right. So we really narrowed it down, which was awesome. But we did kind of get a couple key ones that we liked. So we're thinking about that. You had a awesome thing happen from a job standpoint. And then we have a pretty significant life thing that all of a sudden just kind of happened. So like, if you don't mind, share a little bit of that, because
of course
it wasn't just like the process and starting a franchise, which is a lot. You had a couple other things pop up. Well, what were those?
Yeah. So when we met in mid-January, Tim, and I think the brand reveal was in more mid to late January. And then I found out my wife was pregnant with our first child at the end of February. So, mid to end February. So, and then there was some other things I was working on as well in the background that we're not going to get into. So it was like, and that was a pretty significant life-changing event as well, on top of the pregnancy, on top of the promotion that happened in May. So, and a move, because we knew that we didn't want to stay in Nashville. So a lot of different aspects going on in my life that, while also trying to achieve this lifelong dream of mine to open my own business too. It was a pretty hectic thing.
I thought the lifelong dream was to be on the podcast.
Well, so that too. You can have multiple lifelong dreams.
Good point.
You can't just have one.
No, good point. Well, you need one now because you've achieved the other two.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, there's not enough things in this process looking at franchises that can scare the crap out of people. You get a promotion, which never in the history of promotions does that mean less work.
Of
right?
course.
So you've got that. We're relocating, which is always super easy. But we're not just like switching from apartment 201 to apartment 203. We're going to another time zone, right? Yep. And so we got that. And then, oh, by the way, here's baby number one. Holy hell, what have we gotten ourselves into? Any one of those would have rightfully had people stop in their tracks and go, whoa, whoa, whoa. But for you, it kept being more of a reason to move forward. What was that reason, or what kind of kept you like motivated towards this goal?
Honestly, it's a couple of things. One goes back to just owning a business and building a legacy and generational wealth. My goal is not just to own one franchise, but multiple businesses, whether that's multiple franchises, a combination of businesses I buy, I start as a franchise. So I think that added some urgency to it, because it was, instead of oh my God, I need to save, it's more of a, oh my God, I need to invest in a business that can then have more cash flow coming in. And so that was it. And then another thing too is, I always, in the back of my head, outside of those goals, I'm a long-term thinker. I've always have been. And so, which I use to my advantage a lot of the time. Sometimes it can be detrimental, but use to my advantage sometimes. But I've also always wanted to be the guy that could do it all. And so that's just kind of been my thing. And I know that takes a lot of time. I've been talking about a business for 6 years. I've been saving money since out of college and my undergrad for a potential family since 2013. That has allowed me to get my MBA full time. That allowed me to invest in a franchise. Now to have a baby hit at the same time, to then the other things I was working on, to a promotion that would allow me to make more money and all of that. And so, unfortunately, you can't control when that happens. I've been juggling all of these things for literally 6 years. And so, who am I to say to the universe or to God that this is not going to line up, right? It's like, okay, well, I've been working this. Now it's time to really show if I want to do it. And it's a lot of just being a role model to others as well, of like, if I can juggle a new kid, a business, a full-time job, that's important to me, to be able to say, like, well, how does he do it? And sometimes I feel lazy compared to other people. So that also is a kicker as well. But, it really goes back to always wanting to build that legacy and that generational wealth. And you got to start from somewhere, and then owning my own business, and then kind of being that guy that can do it all. Yeah.
Which again, really fantastic. I appreciate you sharing that. At some point throughout this, did your significantly better half look at you and ask, what the hell are you thinking?
Oh yeah. I did too. Oh yeah. Yeah. At different times. That's the key. You can't panic at the same time. One of you has to panic, and the other one has to be the strong one. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. And so as we were talking before the podcast, it's kind of, I take it as a sign from the universe or God or whatever entity you may or may not believe in, that I was taking on too much, which is why that other thing didn't work out, which is fine, because it can still happen in the future. So, I took the punches, and things generally do kind of work out. But yes, my wife and I were both thinking, what are we doing here? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. And as well you should, right? There should always be those little hiccup moments or fear moments, or you need the paper bag to blow in. But I liked your comment, because my wife and I do this sometimes. It's like, hey, I'm going to vent about something. I don't need you. Like, I need you to just listen this time. Mm-hmm. This isn't solve the problem or tell me where I screwed up. Just let me say it. Or like, hey, you got to be the positive one. I gotta be the whole poker. Right. So sometimes you got to get the roles out of there, because you're right. You can't both be negative at the same time, or it's going to go downhill.
Yeah, very much.
When you were looking at the franchises, how much did the connection and how you felt about the franchisor, the support that you were learning about, the people there, how much of that did matter? Excuse me, how much of that mattered to you?
That was probably the most driving decision. And I honestly felt in the 3 franchises that you gave me, the support was there for all of them. With franchising, you can't just do whatever you want, which can be a downside, right? You have to get some approvals on things, but at the same time, you get a very good, hopefully, support structure that can guide you through how to build your sales, how to teach you and all that. I bought a franchise in fencing, and I've never built a fence in my life. And God help whoever I build a fence for, because it's not gonna it's not gonna be standing strong, that's for sure. And so that was key. And what did the support structure feel like in terms of the training, the support? When I did my my franchise discovery day, they wanted to dine me, and I knew it was happening, and I loved it, which is great. Take advantage of that. If they're not doing that, then maybe find another franchise, or go to like a recruiting trip for a college athlete. Just go to a few.
Exactly.
But it was the biggest thing that I would say for Stand Strong and Horsepower that I was sealed the deal for me was they had a franchise coach, a senior franchise coach that was a franchise owner at one point. He did not own a Stand Strong fencing or Horsepower brand, but he had lived the life of it. And then on top of that, his boss had 30 years of industry experience. There was another gentleman that I believe is the person Tim, that had like 30 years of experience, and that was a franchise coach. And then there was a gentleman that was about my age, that was his entire career for 10 years was in fencing. And so they were even more so than the other Horsepower brand franchises. I thought the support structure was huge in that. They had the experience there to help you. The thing that sealed the deal for me was absolutely having Dean there, having owned a franchise, knowing what a not so great franchise was in the support structure, and then using those as life lessons to incorporate into Stand Strong. That was the thing that was like, yep, I'm going home and I'm telling the wife we're doing this. Well, I'm asking the wife if we can do it. Let's put it that way.
Smart man. There you go.
Yes.
Good job. And at any point during all that, you're like, well, you have no experience in fencing. You have no ability or knowledge how to build a fence. And if you tried, it wouldn't be very good. Did that ever come up? Or they, whoa. I don't know, Trevor, if you're the right person to own this because you can't do it. In fact, it was pretty much the opposite of that, correct?
Yeah, it's all the franchises that you showed, and I think this is in my research of franchises, they don't expect you to have any industry knowledge, right? It's all the support training. And that's why it's so key to understand what that training looks like, because you're not expected to have it. And a lot of times they don't want you to have it too, because you could be jaded towards that industry, right? And so you may have things that you do your own way where they can't mold you anymore, right? To do that franchise. And so it never came up. In fact, I think they preferred that I didn't. They saw my background as a CPA and MBA and had the faith in me to be able to build the business and sales and be able to control my business the way I need to. Right.
And you've said this, touched on this already. Like, you're aware enough to know what you're good at and what you're not as good at, and where you need that support. And with that model of really, like, they're not looking for you to be the one out there even like doing the sales all day, every day, right? Like no, hire that person. Your job is to run and to grow this, right?
Yep.
So, no, super cool. I can't thank you enough for coming on here. We are still in the process of we got to have a baby. We got to get moved. Do we have kind of a target for when we are getting this thing launched?
I had to be careful because of some NDA stuff that I signed. Everything will have taken place this time next year. Let's put it that way. That's about all I can get into. Yep.
Got it. And it may or may not be in Philadelphia.
It will be, yes, in Philadelphia, Montgomery County, which is appropriate because my wife's last name is Montgomery, until she finally changes it to my last name on this next move. She's only had like 8 moves to do it, and it's like never come up, which is fine. I actually don't really care. Yeah.
Mine only recently did that, and only personally. Everything professionally is still the other thing. So I'm like, we're in the same industry. Are you embarrassed? I don't quite understand. And then I realized that's the exact reason. So, so cool. As I'll let you roll. I want one more question. So, because you've kind of come full circle, right? Like, you thinking about this, you find this crazy podcast. You actually like get up the gumption to get on the phone to talk to us, and you go through all this. Now there's basically, Trevor from 8 months ago sitting there listening to this, wondering if this is for them, what's maybe a piece of advice you would give somebody wondering if franchise ownership could be for them?
A few things. One, it doesn't hurt to learn more about it. So there's no risk to someone like me reaching out to you, Tim, because I'm not paying you, right? You
Right.
you make your money in a different way. So from that perspective, reaching out, understanding more about is franchise right for you or not is the most important thing, right? You've said many times on your podcast, it may not be right for you. And so there's no, and and for the people that are concerned about that, you build your relationship skills as well, which you're going to need running a business. And you also give the franchise coach a potential prospect in the future. Now may not be the time, but they have your name, they can reach out to you. So it is mutually beneficial. Not to say that people should spam you, Tim. I'm not saying that. But at the same time, don't be afraid to reach out and learn more. I've learned way more about buying a business through that failed LOI, about funding and things like that than I thought possible. And the other thing, I actually heard this from a Stand Strong fencing owner. They were an amazing couple. They owned a doggy daycare in California called Barkminster Palace. Barkingham Palace. Sorry. It took me a minute to get there. Barkingham Palace, which I thought was hysterical, but I think they were mid 60s. They were doing this as a retirement thing. They wanted to stay involved, stay sharp. And, it was my favorite owner's call, but the husband said, don't overthink it. You'll get a sense of it's a good business or not. You're going to get a sense with the franchise if you can trust them or not. Don't overthink it, and don't make excuses for the franchise either, right? Like if you really want to do it, don't make excuses, but don't overthink it too. Is this the right decision or not? You only live once. It's cliche to say. I'm 33. I got a kid coming on the way. It's a big investment, but at the same time, I looked at it from a perspective of 10 years from now, what am I going to regret? Not pulling the trigger or pulling the trigger? Because what I'm going to learn in that, I don't think I'm going to lose money. I wouldn't have done this if I am. But even if I do, that's going to build me to bigger and better things, hopefully, to fulfill that dream of owning multiple businesses.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I absolutely love it. And exactly what he said, basically. So, Trevor, I can't thank you enough for spending some time. Congrats again on the baby and the business.
Thank you.
The move, I'm busy that day. Otherwise,
Of
I
course.
would be right
Yep.
there with you. But I'll be there in spirit.
Yes.
I can give you the name of some good franchises that do moving if you want.
We
If you want.
moved so much. We got our favorite moving company. So this is one that we've moved ourselves most of the time, but this is one, being my wife's going to be 6-7 months pregnant at that point, that we're like, nope, we're hiring this out. This is a business expense.
Yeah, I feel like that is something everyone should experience a couple times, of moving yourself and loading up the U-Haul or borrowing two friends' pickup trucks and all that. And then you become a grown up and you're like, oh, hell no, I'm paying somebody to do this. So, well, good luck with all of that. And again, I can't thank you enough for coming on and joining us and, fulfilling another one of your lifelong goals. So thanks,
Absolutely.
Trevor, so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Tim, for having me. It's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to getting back on after I start, and maybe I'll be maybe my attitude will change, but I don't think it will.
Maybe it probably will.
I don't know, Tim. That's a good question.
Right, and you get a baby and you're
exactly.
burping, and
exactly, yeah.
You'll be clueless to whatever else is going on. Just that's all it'll matter. So no, absolutely. Let's get you back. Let's do this again. So thanks so much, my friend. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks again to Trevor Schermer for joining us, the new owner of Stand Strong Fencing in Montgomery County of Pennsylvania. So thanks to Trevor. Thanks to all of our loyal podcast listeners. If you haven't yet, hit that little button that lets you subscribe, follow, dare we say even like us or give us a nice little 5-star rating, please. All those things would be great. Remember to learn more about, if you want more than just the podcast, check out our YouTube channel. It has all the podcasts, all sorts of other things, plus our Franchising 360 show, which you can find every Friday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on Biz TV, or just go to our YouTube channel. And if you like a nice book to read, don't forget Becoming a Franchise Owner is also out there. Find that on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, basically wherever you buy books. Podcasts is wherever you get podcasts. Our YouTube stuff is where you get YouTube stuff. Clever, right? And when you're ready to learn more to see if this might be a pathway for you, FranCoach.net is where you find us and our team at FranCoach. There is never, ever any fee for our service. We're going to educate you on what this is all about to see if it's for you. And if so, find you the best one down. That's us. Until next week, we will see you then. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.